Hey, welcome guys. It's Jen. Thanks for joining us for another Pride and Grit Spa Spotlight. I am super excited today to bring my friend Christa Curtis to you all to talk a little bit about her journey and her business and how she arrived there, because I think you might find that interesting and maybe see yourself in that a little bit. So without further ado, let me bring Christa in to meet you all. So hello, Christa. Thanks for joining us all the way from Germany. So we're going to do our best and hope Wi-Fi holds out, despite the fact the whole universe is currently at home on Wi-Fi.
It is insane.
Yes, I'm sure we'll have a few glitches, but you know what? It's all good. So no worries. So go ahead and introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about kind of where you're at, what your kind of military story is, and then we'll get into some of the other things you have your hands in.
Awesome. So yeah, my name is Christa Curtis. Like Jen said, I am the founder and owner of Permanent Change of Storing. I work as an organization professional. My military journey kind of thing started when I fell in love with a sailor in San Diego while I was in college. And we fell in love, got married, had babies, and we've been doing that pretty much for the past 11 years. No more babies, though. We're good. And in that journey, we have traveled around the world literally a couple times now, been to Virginia, Japan, Bahrain, back to
Mm,
Washington State, over to Rhode Island, and now we're here in Germany.
awesome. Yeah, we were like passing, I think, in Germany. We were leaving,
Yes,
you were arriving. Yes. But awesome. All right. So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned your permanent change of storing. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. And before we get into the business piece, let's talk a little bit about kind of the mill life piece. So because you've been all over, you've seen, culturally, you've seen differences and, in terms of, it sounds like if I think through those audiences, not always, an exclusively Navy audience, right? So you've been in some other places that have had a combination. So I'm just curious from your perspective, what you've seen over the years, since you've been at this a little while as well, like me. What are some of the things that you think are the hardest about military life, and what are some of the things that you think are really the best and the greatest blessings of military life?
Okay, just clarifying that was the hardest things of military life at first,
Mm-hmm.
or yes. Wow. Okay, hardest things. I don't know. Now, some of the hard things don't seem so hard anymore, but there's always going to be those things that just break your heart, like obviously deployments, leaving friends, never an easy thing. Even just having to say goodbye to a home every couple of years, like you guys made memories there, you guys, had good times or something like that. It's really rough, but my husband and I kind of have this joke now. One of the things that I love about all this moving around we do is that I've kind of grown this weird knack for loving to be in new places
Mm-hmm.
and new things. Like we haven't repeated a duty station yet, and like we were kind of coming up on that. I was like, oh, it would be nice to kind of go somewhere familiar. I think I
Right.
don't know.
Maybe
Might be
not.
boring.
Yeah. I know. Like, careful what you wish for. Sometimes it may not be all you think it might be. Although we have had this weird, I feel like it's weird because I just don't think it's super common, but just circumstances where we ended up returning to the same house twice. So we were in it, we went somewhere
Right.
else, we came back to the same house. And so that was such an interesting time because it really was so easy. It was like, oh, well, I know exactly where the mixer goes. I know exactly where, my clothes go, my dresser goes. And, like putting furniture and putting things away was the fastest it's ever been. So my organization, I think, was at like peak high just because I knew exactly, how to be
Yes,
organized in
I
that
can
particular
imagine. Yeah.
space. But not at all the norm, right? And so being able to just roll with it and even enjoy it, I think to your point, like I think there's a lot of people who actually enjoy sort of the challenge of making it feel like home again, in a new place, in a new space.
Exactly.
Um,
Even the mundane stuff, like you said, finding out where the mixer goes or figuring out where you're going to go grocery shopping, where you're going to go to the dentist, things that just seem like kind of regular mundane things for people who live in the same house for 20 years. And we're like, oh, I get to figure it out again.
Well, and I get to pick a
Which
new
I know not a
dentist.
lot of people get excited about the way I do, but yeah.
No, I know. It like it's a chore, but like you got to find something about it that's like, oh, this will be, like this will be the best hygienist ever that I've ever had. Like this one will not hurt my teeth.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
Oh, I will say, like, I still have not found a hairstylist care like I had in Bahrain. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
I went every week. It was so inexpensive and it was so amazing that it was something I had to do every week. It was
yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
right. Yeah, not in the States, that's for sure. Yeah. Okay, so
Okay.
let's shift a little bit because I want to talk about, you kind of led into it a little bit with just setting up a house and kind of organizing in that sense, but talk to us a little bit about kind of your journey because this is what you're doing and this is your business, but talk to me about how you got there because I think that story is one that will resonate with folks who are also kind of, considering maybe going out and trying something different.
Yeah, absolutely. I started on my organization journey. I guess you could say I've always kind of been having a knack for it, having interest in it. It always kind of gave me some weird pleasure to like get a room cleaned and organized and have everything in its place, even from the time when I was young. But when I was a new mom, I found this book at Barnes and Noble, those crazy big buildings filled with books that you
Right.
go into and you pay for it and you bring it home,
Yeah. Back in
Um,
the day.
and I remember grabbing, yeah, I know, right? Grabbing a book. It's called The Organized Mom by Stacy Crew, and I read that thing cover to cover. And it's kind of more geared towards when you're a new mom and like getting the nursery set up
Mm-hmm.
and how to like pack your diaper bag and stuff like that. But it also goes over the entire house and like even setting up a filing system and everything. Really, really awesome book. And a lot of different organizers kind of have you know all of those bases covered and there's things, but what I loved about her book was the method that she taught me. And it just blew me out of the water, and like thinking of my space in terms of like square feet and how I pay rent for that, and my stuff doesn't pay me to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't. And so it kind of gives you an idea to kind of wrap your head around of like why you have your stuff and where you keep it and how you use it really kind of all ties together when it comes to being organized.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like putting everything in a bin so you can't see it,
Right.
or shoving everything in the closet so it's not on the floor. That's not organized. That's
Oh, come on,
maybe
really?
clean and like have sight of mind, but and it's just really fun to like actually go through stuff, figure out why you have it, figure out if it brings value or happiness or whatever you want to call it to your life, and then put it in a place that's meaningful. It's great for daily use. Um, and then just kind of like I said, with all those different moves that we've had, I really learned to kind of hone how to use those items and then how to pack them so that when I get ready to unpack on the other side, that stuff can just get put away right away. And it's not just a big box full of stuff to me. It's, I kept this for a reason. I know how I want to use it. This is the new space that I want it to
Mm-hmm.
go in. And this is where I want it to be. This is its new home.
Right.
Again, it's kind of weird to kind of think about your stuff like that it has a home or anything like that with you, but it really does,
Mm-hmm.
because then you learn to always bring it back home. You know where it always is when you need it. Again, it seems really elementary sometimes, but it's these things that you don't think about when you have to move around so much that you end up losing things, or you forget what you have, so you buy more. That's the kind of habits that I want to
Mm-hmm.
break with the military life cycle of like just losing stuff or overbuying,
Mm-hmm.
or even holding on to stuff that we just really don't need anymore because we haven't made the time to deal with it.
I know.
So,
It is such
um,
a hard thing
and
though to like separate from
yeah,
that what if. Like I'm so guilty of it. And I remember not too long ago we were doing some organizing in the basement and I was like, "Oh, I need blah blah blah." And my husband's like, "No, you don't. You need to use one of these other 12 things that we already have." And like he wasn't wrong, right? I had to,
yeah,
I was able to figure out how to make use of those, but I think it is really challenging. Like, we all have multiple utensil options for drawers because every drawer is not the
Yeah,
same depth, like stuff like that. I mean, I think it's finding that balance between, you don't want to have to buy it new every time, but you also, don't want to just keep accumulating and keep accumulating because one, it's just added weight. And two, to your point, like it's just not, every time I go and look at that shelf where we have that stuff stored, it's annoying to me, right? This is all this stuff that I can't let go of until we're done moving.
it's a pain point.
It is. It's like this emotional weight. Like, I know it sounds silly, but I like every time I see that section, I'm like, oh, I wish I could get rid of those things because I don't need 6 of them. But I'm always so fearful that, oh, but
Yeah,
the next house, I'm going to be like, man, I wish I'd had that. But you know what's going to happen in the next house? I'm not going to say that. I'm going to make whatever I have work, So it's like, I think finding that balance continues to be hard if you've, moved a lot.
exactly. And if you really desperately need it again, you can probably find it at Walmart.
Well,
You can
or
probably
find
find
it at
it
the
on
thrift
Amazon.
store, or find
You
it. Yeah.
know, like
Yeah. No, it's true. It's so true. Yeah. I have, like everyone else, right? I have curtains in every color and every size and every shape. And it's like, oh gosh. Um,
curtains are one of the things that I say don't get rid of actually because you never know
I
what kind of
know.
house you're going to
Well,
be
and they're
next
not, they're not
for
in,
our lifestyle.
they're not inexpensive, like, oh, but so I want to go back to
It's true.
something you said, because I think that was one of the pieces that was really interesting to me is, so you took this thing that you were good at and sort of figured out, okay,
Yeah,
well, how, is that a skill that other people maybe don't have? And the reality is, yes, right? There's some people that just, there's a lot of things where you could do it for someone else, but it's hard to do it for yourself. And I feel like organizing is one of those things because you're like emotionally attached to the decisions about where it should go. And you almost like need someone who can come in with fresh eyes and be like, well, but where's the most functional place for it? And really think about it differently. So I love that you just kind of took a passion and something you were good at and could teach others and figured out how to design it. So like from a
yeah,
business standpoint, what does that look like for you? Like right now it might obviously is different with everybody sort of, homebound, but on a normal day, what does the business look like for you? Are you doing that in homes? Are you doing it remotely? Or like tell us a little bit about that.
yeah. So I mean, I started out just kind of helping friends, get like their pain point place, kind of set up and organize. It's like, look, let me just sort it out for you. You decide what to keep, and then I'll put it on the shelf for you, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of things. And so as I kind of went through and figured out that this is what I want to do, and I kind of thought about like you said, do people really need this? Is this something that people would actually pay money for?
Mm-hmm.
like, and I couldn't figure out how to like market it. And then I just thought, you know what? I'm just gonna go pick a friend who desperately needs this because their house, they feel like their house is a mess.
Right.
And she was great about it. Don't get me wrong, she was fantastic. And just say like, let me come in and just start working with
Mm-hmm.
you and like kind of get an idea for how the relationship works with different personalities and different relationships with stuff, because obviously I have no relationship with her stuff, but
Right.
her relationship with her stuff might look different than another client's as well.
Yeah, no, good point.
So it's really interesting because I've worked with minimalists, but they still just need help like
Mm-hmm.
placing stuff, and I've worked with people who have literally piles everywhere
Mm-hmm.
who have no idea where to start. And that's, I think, the big thing for a lot of people is no matter how much stuff you have, whatever your pain points are, whatever your like kind of difficulties where you in your own home, it seems like getting started is the
Yeah,
biggest hurdle.
no, for
And that's
sure.
for anybody. And that's whether you're kind of a self starter where you can kind of listen to a few podcasts or read a book like I did and then get going and get started and everything like that. Or maybe you're like me who say I need to lose 20 pounds and I can't get myself to the gym. My big push might be to like hire a personal trainer.
Sure.
So that's
Yeah.
what I say I am
Right.
for someone who
Personal
needs to
training.
get organized, is kind of a personal
I love it.
trainer to come in and show you what you need to do, show you how to take a few steps and give you a couple of little victories and like show you that it can be done, it can be easy, it can be tackled. And then there's this is kind of a weird analogy, but then there's the liposuction where the pro comes in and just does it for you. Like so that's kind of like it starts out with a consult. I just kind of want to get a feel for like how people use their spaces and how what kind of their needs are, and then how much they really want me as part of the process. Do you want me
Right.
to come in and just show you a few things? Do you want me to come in and hold your hand while we sort together? Do you want me to sort and you to purge and me to put it on the shelf?
Sure.
Or do you need me to just do it all? You know, it's really different levels. And I haven't really like packaged it out a little bit to see like, you know, like pricing it wise, you know, like what my different efforts are and everything. But I like to just come in on an hourly rate right now and
Mm-hmm.
just help.
Just help. Yeah.
That's like me as like I'm about a year and a half into this, building the business and kind of getting a feel for working with different personalities and different, like I said, different relationships with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's different for everybody, and trying to figure out how to navigate that. I think I didn't mention this before, but I have a psychology background, so
Mm.
that's kind of where this comes into play of just like getting a feel for what's going on
Sure.
and making sure I understand how you want to use your stuff and your space, and not being, you know, too pushy or anything like that. I'm an Enneagram 8, so I can definitely get pushy if I need to, but I'm also my wing or my in one is the 7, so I'm a enthusiast as well. It's like,
Yeah.
no, we can really do
I
this.
know.
I promise, please do it.
I love that about you. Like if you need a cheerleader, like Christa's your girl. It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah. No, I
Funny story, I wasn't cheerleading.
well, shocker. No, that's awesome.
Go figure.
So one of the things I don't know if you said this today, but if not, I know I've heard you say it before, and it was such an eye opener for me, which is the idea that as you organize, especially for military families, and so I think what you do with this sort of slant on PCS and slant on simplifying and making that process of unpacking easier was this idea that if you're deliberate in how you organize, you really shouldn't have to reorganize at each new location. That if you put that thought in on the
Yeah.
front end, that really you can kind of just take that box or take that, container, whatever it is, and sort of find a new location for it. But really its contents may not ever have to shift. And I think and maybe I'm the only person out there like this, but I feel like every time we move, I'm like reorganizing and reorganizing and reorganizing. And I hadn't really given thought to the fact that perhaps spending a little bit of time doing some of that in advance in a way that is mobile, if you will, um, actually would make
Right.
things easier at the next location and make that process of unpacking a lot simpler and a lot quicker and just frankly less stressful. So I think I always thought that was such a great tip that I just I don't know, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
What are some of the things
And
like
I don't.
that you've done like for yourself, like for your family? What does that look like for you guys?
Um, so I mean, it's interesting because like for the past 7 years, I was also a 31 consultant, so that's all different kinds of things that they had. But I was always drawn to their organizational products,
Sure.
the bins, the bags, the zipper pouches, everything to kind of just keep things contained. Um, and that's just kind of been a slow progression of like, oh, I have enough stuff to kind of make office space now, so I'm gonna get the stuff for an office space. And then I have enough stuff now to make like a little craft area for the kids. So I'm going to get the stuff to make a craft area for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the idea that I try to bring to my clients before you buy containers, before you, even from the dollar store, it doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to be anything fancy.
Right.
Um, you want to have everything kind of grouped together and in the places you're going to use them and know how much you have. Because if you just say, oh, I'm going to make an art center when you're staring at all the organizational bins in Target and you buy a whole bunch
Mm,
and then you get home and you realize you only have a pack of crayons and 4 coloring books, then it's like, what are you going to put in these?
right.
Or the vice versa, you could see 2 cute little bins on clearance and think, oh, I can make an art center out of this. This is so cute. And then you come home and you have paints and you have scrapbooking stuff and you have sewing stuff. And it's like, I can't make a craft station out of just these 2 little organizers because I have a lot more than that. And then it gets mixed and matched and everything like that. Not a problem if you want to mix and match like
Sure.
that, but it helps to know what you have
Yeah.
first. And another really great tip I got from Stacy Crew was leaving room for growth, about 30% of
Mm.
room for growth.
Oh
Kind of like
gosh,
this
I'm
idea of
terrible about that.
I know. We're like so used to like just shoving it in there and making it fit, but that might mean that maybe your container is too small
Mm-hmm.
or you have too much stuff. It could be either one. You don't
Or
know,
both.
but or at least until you figure it out, right?
Right.
um, so then when you take that step to kind of evaluate and figure out, what works better, it really kind of opens your eyes to like using the space efficiently. And then, like I said, the container that you invest in, whether it's or whether $20, whatever you feel like, that it just kind of makes it easier to look at and make sure that everything's in its right place. And like you said, um, just kind of keeping that stuff together and keeping it corralled and making sure
Mm-hmm.
that everything gets home again. That's going to be so much easier when it comes time to pack up
Yeah.
and get it moved to place because everything is home and it's not a big deal to like when you unpack the boxes, you're not going to have the crayons in the bedroom and the coloring books in the kitchen and your scrapbook stuff in the garage. It's all going to be kind of in the same place.
Right.
So it's really kind of fun when you think about like how much it's going to actually take the workload off of you on the
On the
back
back
end
end. Yeah,
when it
yeah,
comes to
right.
unpacking.
I mean, it is just, it's an investment in effort. Like you're going to do the effort. I mean, maybe not. Maybe, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people who don't ever really unpack. If you're only sit with there somewhere for a year or 2 years, like they may not actually unpack. I've never been able, like the boxes kill me. I can't. Um, so there's that. But
I always go for the full unpack. It's in your moving contract that the movers are going to get paid for it anyway. So why not have them take the boxes and paper away for you anyway?
right.
And that's a whole nother story about pre-packing and making sure your stuff isn't going to end up in piles on the other
Yeah.
side. But yeah, I mean that's me. I always
No,
say go
I'm
for the
with
full
you.
unpack.
Yeah,
Everybody agrees with me on that.
I saw the interview you did with Millie. I'm going to link to that one. I'll link to that in here because there's tons and tons of great tips. So there's, that I think that's a great place for people who are just kind of curious how they could make things a little bit easier for themselves. So I'll link to that
Right.
as well because I thought it was lots of good data, especially right now with all that's going on and some of the uncertainty of
Yeah.
storage moves and
I mean, it was kind of geared towards like stuff going into temp storage,
sure,
but it equally
yep,
applies to moving overseas, to moving long distances because of that unpacking factor, where it literally will cut your time in half just having them empty the
yeah,
boxes for you
no,
and taking that away. And you don't have to end up with piles of boxes and
right.
paper.
Then now you
Like
need to
that's the
organize.
most annoying to me.
Yes.
Like if that's the one thing I can skip out of all the moves, then I am totally all for it.
Yeah, it's
So
funny how
not a
like
problem.
people have very strong opinions like I never do it or I always do it. That doesn't seem to be a lot of middle ground on that one. So I think people definitely have a solid opinion one way or the other. So as we sort of wrap up, let me shift a little bit back to the business piece because I'd like to have you just kind of help, for people who may have their own passion that they're interested in. I always like to hear what were some of the things that you I don't know, maybe your best lessons learned, if you will, for like starting a new business, and what some of those pain points were for you, and kind of share those with others in the hopes maybe maybe it won't be as hard. But any advice in that arena would be helpful.
Yeah, no problem. I kind of come from an entrepreneurial background. My dad was in business consulting. My mom and sister both do cake decorating and stuff like that. And I don't know if any of those you could ever say were really super serious. My dad's business consultant on the side teaching, and I have been doing, like I said, I was doing 31 kind of on the side of my main gig as mom and wife and
Right.
Navy spouse moving around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but my pain point with that was kind of having to start over every time we moved. And I liked it in the sense that it got me out, it got me moving, it got me meeting people. I'm an extrovert, so I like, friends and stuff like that. And that was just kind of my little push to get out the door and to start meeting people.
Right.
And now it's this kind of different idea of just like, I just want to help people. And like, I don't want to just like, be all about products and sales and stuff like that. I just want to help people.
Sure.
And especially in this lifestyle, that's my main thing. And I think when you come to that moment of like, this is what I really want to do because it makes me happy, like it's so eye-opening, and it really does give you that push and that drive to keep going and learn the hard stuff
Mm-hmm.
and make the investment. Like, I started paying $600 a month for a babysitter this past couple of months, and that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we found kind of the money in our budget and our finances, and we figured out how much I have to work in order to make that work
Right.
and afford that. That was not something I was willing to do before now.
Sure.
And that's not to say that like my other efforts weren't, validating and fun and I had a little bit of a passion for them, but this was just the first time that I was like, yes, I am
Right.
going all in on this, and I think that's super important when you're ready to kind of move into something like this. And it just really keeps you going. It's so
Yeah.
crazy. Like you talk about your why and you talk about like your reason for doing something, and this is definitely my thing. Like, I love doing it. I want to help people. Let's keep going.
Yeah. No, that's
Kind of like, I guess you could say some of those painful moments for me were, even just figuring out some basic systems, like what to charge, how to market,
yeah.
how to not be like, look, your house is a disaster. You desperately need it. Like,
Diplomacy.
that I'm not a judgmental person like that.
Right.
And not when I always tell my clients whenever I come in for their consult, it's like, please don't clean up before I come. I am not there to judge. I am not there to, say your house is the worst house I've ever seen or anything like that. It's certainly not the case. And I want to make sure that I have a good idea of how they use their spaces and stuff like that.
Sure.
So I don't want them to think that I'm coming in to just, yeah, like I'm not there to make it make an example of them or anything
Right.
like
No,
that.
no.
That's actually kind of why I don't share a whole lot of before and after photos
Sure.
on my Facebook page and my Instagram, which a lot of like marketers and social media people have been telling me, like, oh, let's see before and afters, let's see the progression. It's like,
Yeah.
everybody wants me to share that.
Yeah. That's hard. It's a little bit like
So
vulnerable, right?
again, yeah. So again, like what I've been talking about recently is actually trying to figure out social media and like what kind of content to curate and share and stuff like that. Because these days you do need a social media presence in
Mm-hmm.
order to kind of just be out there and make sure people know who you are. And I totally get that. I am not knocking that at all. But it's just a kind of a difficult thing for me to dedicate time to and to learn and to get into a flow for it.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
but there have been some really great resources. Make Her Millspouse Retreat,
Mm-hmm.
which was amazing and really great learning experience. All of the ladies that I connected in there have connected me to other resources and stuff like that that have been just phenomenal. There's so much out there for military spouses getting into business that I didn't even think that was possible, because
Mm-hmm.
we talk about how spouses are like this untapped resource of talent, and they can't get a job, they can't keep their certifications, they can't keep moving around and having an impact unless they're volunteering.
Right.
But it's like, you need that paycheck sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So not just for money, but
No,
also
but
just kind of that
yeah, it's just
fulfillment
sure.
of like, look at this, I did this, like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that's super awesome that this entrepreneur thing is kind of being more supported
Mm-hmm.
and like validated, that like, hey, if you rock at something and you love it, like, let's put some money in that, let's
Mm-hmm.
put some training into that, let's put some community into that, so that you can feel like these little victories and get towards your goals. So I think that's really
Yeah.
awesome.
No, I continue to be blown away by, and I had actually said this to one of the founders of or co-creators or whatever they call themselves of Make Her, that,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I didn't recognize that I needed sort of a group like that until I had one. I didn't really even fully understand what that meant. But even since then, I've been blown away by the number of other groups that exist that are equally present in the space and really just trying to lift others up. And I think, it's so refreshing to see, and it's really kind of just heartwarming to understand how many people, are happy to help you and happy to, share their wins,
Yes.
share their losses, like, share what's worked and what hasn't worked in the hopes that it can help you. And I think I did not understand how much that is a part of this community. And at the end of the day, we're all cheering for each other. And And I
Yeah.
love that part. So yeah, I just it's cool. It's fun to be a part of it, but it's also fun just to watch it because I love seeing it in others as well. Um,
Yeah. And that's kind of a funny aspect because again, Enneagram 8, like I like being in there helping people figure out what they need to do, and like kind of going by the rules and pushing the limits sometimes and challenging people. um it's been nice to kind of take a step back a couple times and realize that I don't know everything. Like, I definitely felt that when I first got to the Make Her retreat, like I was not supposed to be there.
oh yeah, I'm right there with you, dear.
I was like, oh my goodness, this room is full of very successful, amazing women that really know their stuff, and
Mm,
I'm just gonna go.
yeah,
Okay, like, um, so very humbling, but also kind of empowering
yeah,
to know that they were once where I was, just starting out and just learning, and I could get there too. So I mean, it's really amazing. And again, just kind of that amazing group bond that we have now to really take care of each other, really hype each other up, and promote each other, do cross promotions, and all
yes,
this kind of stuff. Like it's amazing.
yeah.
I kind of have this idea for a hashtag campaign, and I don't know how to do it or how to again, social media not my strong point, but I want to. It's kind of just this idea I have of strong interdependent women. So
Mm,
not strong independent women or
mm-hmm.
woman, but strong interdependent women, because we so
Depend
rely
on
on
each
each
other.
other. And
Yeah,
it's like, you can say you're independent and you got it and you're strong and you can do it, and like single moms or anything
right.
like that, like all of that's really great, but I don't think any of us do it without help.
Yeah.
We have people that we rely on every single day to really get us through. And sure, it might not be a man.
Oh, I think you froze. Oh no. I'll give Krista just a second. I think we're about. Oh, there you are. I was going to say, if I don't know where I forget what word you froze on, but I love your hashtag. I think that's
Oh,
awesome.
okay.
It's so true.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just something that came into my mind of like, we need each other. We need like those strengths from other people, and to build up other people's weaknesses for where we can fill in. And I just think that's an amazing nation, especially when you come out of like the whole mean girl age of
Sure.
like everybody's against each other.
Right. No. No.
You
That's
know what I mean?
yeah. No. I think I think it's all. It's different. It's not what I expected. I think, and to your point, I think the support of the entrepreneurial spirit in the military community is as high as it's ever been. Partly for the reasons you mentioned, because at some point you say, okay, I'm tired of continuing to kind of pivot in every new direction. I want something that's my own, that I can just move it to the next place and pick up where I left off, if you will, with my offerings and my services, and not have to feel like every single time you're starting completely over from scratch. So I do think that's a huge part of why people are starting to consider it. And I think people like you show others that, take something you're passionate at and put your heart into it and roll with it. And frankly, see what happens. I won't get the phrase right, but there's a, thing about, being afraid to fail. And it's like, well, yeah, but what if? I think it's like Eleanor Roosevelt has a really good quote that, of course, is eluding me at the moment. But, you might fly. So do it. Just do it anyway, and see what happens. So I appreciate you being here with us.
Make her quote. We have the launch it broken, fix it last.
Yeah, I love that one too. That one took me a while. The perfectionist in me has not had a hard time with that one.
I know. Same here.
Yes.
I know what you mean.
Any sort of parting words? I think you've like nailed it all. But anything else you wanted to share that we didn't get to?
I I just really hope that if you are thinking about doing business wise, that you just take a look and see what's out there. If you are just starting to get organized for yourself, for your family, for your marriage, anything like that, you can totally give a shout out to me or anything like that over on my Facebook page, and also on permanentchangeofstoring.com. You can find me on like Instagram and Facebook on Permanent Change of Storing. That's like perfect. But I want to help. Like that's just it's not necessarily a need to be needed kind of thing, but it's definitely if you need help, I'm ready to help you.
Yeah, no.
So feel free to reach out, especially if I can't go into clients' homes right now. Please reach out so I
Yeah,
can
I
just
know.
kind of keep up with my skills.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yeah, I'll send you some photos of my basement. All right. Well, thank you.
I would love to see it.
Yeah, thank you, Christa, for joining us. I do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, guys. So, um, that was awesome. We love Christa, and like I said, I'll link to all her socials so you guys can find it, and I'm going to link to that Millie interview too because it had a lot of really great details. So check those out. And if you know anyone who is a mill spouse, has a business, um, send them my way because I think during this time when so many of us are at home, I'm really going to try to ramp up a few of these and maybe have these a little more frequently. One, just to kind of showcase all the amazing talent that's out there, but two, to also give us all an opportunity to support those individuals as much as we can. So if you know someone, send them to me. I would love to talk to them, and we will catch you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.